Hi, I'm Ken Jacobson, Senior Documentary Programmer, AFI Festivals, and I want to welcome you to AFI Fest 2020, presented by Audi, and to this Q&A for Downstream to Kinshasa, directed by Diudo Hamadi. First, I want to thank our supporters of the festival, our presenting sponsor, Audi, our AFI members, and of course, you, our audience. Downstream to Kinshasa had its world premiere at the 2020 Cannes Film Festival, the first Congolese film in the history of Cannes to be chosen as an official selection. The film went on to screen at the Toronto International Film Festival, and we're thrilled to be presenting the US premiere of the film here at AFI Fest. We're equally thrilled today to have with us director Diudo Hamadi. Diudo Hamadi was born in Kisangani, Democratic Republic of the Congo in 1984. He has directed 5 features, including Mama Colonel, which received the Cinema du Real Grand Prize, Kinshasa Makambo, and National Diploma. Mama Colonel and Kinshasa Makambo both screened at AFI Dux, which we're very pleased about. Welcome, Diudo. And I also want to welcome Frederick Cassidy, who will be interpreting for us today. Thank you both for being here.
Il vous souhaite la bienvenue et vous remercie.
Congratulations on the film again. Honestly, I think it's just a tremendous achievement.
Merci.
Thank you.
So to begin, can I ask you a bit to talk a bit about the Six-Day War and give us a little bit more context than what we see in the film? And I'll just say, you know, from an American perspective, the idea of 2 countries, in this case, Rwanda and Uganda, fighting a war within the borders of a 3rd country, your country, is somewhat out of our realm of experience. You know, briefly, how did that war come about? And, you know, where was the Congolese government and military during that time?
Okay, thank you for that question. And so 20 years ago, the Congo was at war. It was the second war of the Congo. And in fact, the country was divided in 2. The West, the country was under the Congolese government, the legal government, but the East was under the rule of the rebels. And the rebels were sponsored both by the Rwandan army and the Ugandan army. And so it happened on the 5th of June that these 2 sponsors of the rebellion came to cross at the very city where Diudo grew up in Kisangani. And then there was a fight to control the city and to take possession or control of the city. And so therefore there was the battle that lasted 6 days.
Vers Kinshasa. Et donc, c'est pour justement contrôler la ville que ces 2 armées se sont affrontées. Et c'était durant 6 jours. Et c'est ce qu'on a appelé la guerre des 6 jours de Kisangani.
So, this being your hometown, Kisangani, can you tell us what your memories of the war were and how it may have affected you?
The tragedy is that I didn't have many memories of this war because I was 15 or 16 years old, and almost everybody in the city has forgotten about this war. And 2 years ago, I returned to work on another project. And when I saw the victims in the city, those who had not been able to rebuild their lives, all of these memories came back to me. And it just seemed that everyone had forcibly made themselves forget about that, except the people who remembered it were those victims of the actual war. And the people who had sort of escaped without harm had put it behind them. And so my own memories were sort of in between there. But the thing that came back to me the most was the smell. Because after 6 days of confinement during the war, we all came out, and in the streets, there were so many bodies, and there were dogs that were eating the corpses. And so the overwhelming sense of memory that came back was the sense of smell and the image of dogs. And so that was only until I returned and saw the victims that this all came back to me.
À la sortie de la guerre, après 6 jours de confinement forcé, il y avait des cadavres partout dans les rues, bouffés par des chiens, et une odeur terrible s'est dégagée dans toutes les rues, dans tous les quartiers. Mais il a fallu que je voie les victimes de cette guerre, un peu comme on les a vus dans les films, pour que je puisse me remémorer de tout ça, parce que je les avais déjà oubliés.
Can you talk about how you first, whether it was on the trip you just described or another trip, where you first got to know this incredible group of people, these survivors of this war, you know, and how you decided what made you decide you wanted to make this film with them?
I came to cross paths with this unique group while I was filming my last film because they were in the background. They showed up, and they're not a group that goes unnoticed. They were missing limbs, and they were talking with the people that I was actually filming at the time. And so I realized then that, wow, this is something that I want to film, partly out of shame for how I had forgotten them, how society had forgotten them, and that as a filmmaker, it was a duty to tell their story and to remember them. And so on the other sentiment that came up was anger. How could these people be erased from our history? So I was waiting for an occasion to start this film, and I got a phone call from a member of this organization who said that they were going to plan a trip to Kinshasa, and that became the instigation for jumping on board and following them through this experience.
Tout ce que nous avions connu puisse être effacé complètement de mémoire. C'est alors que j'avais décidé de faire un film avec eux quand l'occasion se présenterait. Et quelques mois après, j'ai reçu un appel d'un membre de l'association de victimes avec qui j'avais pris le temps de sympathiser et qui m'a parlé de leur voyage qu'ils comptaient faire à Kinshasa. Alors, à ce moment-là, j'avais l'occasion que je voulais pour démarrer le projet. Et c'est ainsi que j'ai pu retourner à Kisangani et faire le film.
So that was going to be my next question. I need to talk to you about this epic journey down the Congo River from Kisangani to Kinshasa. My understanding is you were the one filming, you were on the boat filming. How did you manage to shoot under such difficult circumstances? And what did you learn about the group over the course of the trip?
So the question was about how did he prepare for such a journey? And in fact, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. All I knew is that there would be a trip. I had never filmed on a boat or on the water. I was not at all prepared for this. In fact, it wasn't really a boat. It was more of a cargo situation where people are just placed on top of this boat, and day and night they're subjected to the elements and however extreme they may be. And so I really didn't know that this was going to happen. And there's a few instances where the boat almost sank and there were accidents. And so none of that was anything I was prepared for. And another challenge was that other passengers did not want to be filmed. And so I had a camera and they found that aggressive. And so I ended up having to film on an iPhone. And a lot of what you see in the film, it was shot right off of my iPhone, which they tolerated much better. And what was extraordinary about this journey for the people I was filming was that they suddenly became aware of the greater conditions in their country, in the country of Congo. In fact, that they're not the only ones who are marginalized, that there are people who are able-bodied who have very extreme conditions and that live also in the margins. And so their journey was a discovery of that awareness that they are not alone in the extreme quality of their life and their marginalization.
C'est le moment où j'ai eu l'impression qu'ils avaient pris conscience que de la réalité de leur pays, en fait. Certainement, ils sont marginalisés, ils sont dans des situations extrêmes, mais à travers ces voyages, j'ai eu l'impression qu'ils ont compris que beaucoup d'autres Congolais, beaucoup de leurs compatriotes, même sans être rescapés des guerres, vivaient aussi des conditions extrêmes, difficiles. Et on était, si vous voulez, au sens propre, comme au figuré, dans le même bateau. Et j'ai eu l'impression, quelque part, qu'ils avaient pris conscience qu'ils n'étaient pas plus à plaindre que beaucoup de Congolais qui vivaient plus ou moins dans la même misère qu'eux.
Talk a bit about the protest at the National Assembly. Obviously, this is the key moment, what they've been building towards with this trip. Also, this is a case where you find yourself in the middle of these events. At one point, I think your camera is grabbed, you're probably jostled a bit. What was it like for you to be there? What was the group hoping to have happen? And did events play out as you expected them to?
The group had decided to go to the capital, and this is with the leadership of this organization, because they were tired of asking for what they needed in their hometown, and they thought that they would be more effective somehow. But the touching part of that was how naive, in fact, these their hopes were, or they were really not prepared in any way. They relied on people who didn't follow through or who abandoned them along the way. And so it was more of a place to go to, this assembly, the Assemblée Nationale. And they started with that and just naively wanted to go there without a plan. And so my role as the filmmaker was to be with them and just to film their experience. And so then again, at this location, there was no way of filming with a professional camera, so it was all shot on a phone. And of course, they grabbed my phone, and then after a little while, they returned my phone, and I continued to film. But I didn't know any more than they did what was about to happen or what there was to gain from it.
Voilà, de faire corps avec eux, de le suivre où qu'ils aillent et de voir ce qui va se passer. Et même quand on est arrivé à l'Assemblée nationale, déjà, encore une fois, j'avais un téléphone, c'était plus pratique plutôt qu'une caméra, sinon on ne m'aurait pas laissé entrer. Mais en même temps, je ne pouvais pas à l'avance savoir ce qui allait se passer. Pour moi, le plus important, c'était d'être avec eux, de pouvoir filmer pour que les spectateurs comprennent ce que nous sommes en train de faire là. Et c'est ainsi que même quand on m'a arraché mon téléphone, au bout d'un moment, je l'ai récupéré et j'ai continué à filmer.
We just have a few more minutes, and I want to try to get in 3 more questions if I can. First, can you tell us a bit more about the theatrical performance scenes in the movie? How did those come about? Just whatever you can tell us about those scenes.
So it turns out that this organization had a theatrical component to it, and that they would do sketches or theatrical presentations really to earn money. and sometimes they would be it was auto-derisive a little bit towards themselves, but to entertain and to keep the message alive, but also have an audience and some revenue. And so I filmed some of their rehearsals and performances ahead of time before the journey, and to see what they had, what was their message, what are they saying, how are they presenting this. And the goal was then for them to present these scenes in Kinshasa. However, it was a very strange time with the presidential elections, and they were never able to do their theatrical presentations at that moment. And so in the editing, we, with the editor, we saw those two levels of the story. One was the reality and their journey, and the other one was how they told their own story themselves on stage. And so we interwove both of them and thought it really, they helped each other tell the story.
Bravo. It really worked very, very well. So we're pretty much out of time, but I want to ask you in closing, can you, the events we see in the film, I believe, are about 2 years old, 2018. Can you give us an update on the group or any individuals in the group? Have they had any success gaining compensation for their injuries?
So in the 2 years since the filming of this, many of the people you see in the film have remained in Kinshasa, and they are still militant, and some of them have returned, including, c'est Sola, n'est-ce pas? Sola, the young student who was, featured in the film. She wanted to complete her studies, so she returned to her hometown. However, others have joined, and the group is actually larger now than it was in the film. And they continue to do sit-ins in front of the ministries, in front of the ONGs and other government buildings. But until now, nothing concrete, no results have occurred. And so they just they're continuing the battle.
Of all the films that I watched this year in preparation for AFI Fest, I can think of no other film that affected me as profoundly as your film, which to me is exemplary of the highest in the documentary art form. So congratulations to you on the film.
Merci.
So we're out of time. I want to just urge our audience to please tell your friends to see this film. Spread the word as much as you can. Also spread the word via social media at #AFIFest. And explore our other films at fest.afi.com. I want to thank Frederick for interpreting for us today, and Diudo for being with us and for your extraordinary film. And we look forward to having you back at Fest in the future.
Merci.